The Crown of Withering Stars, a dark royal fantasy BL saga. Prologue. The night the sky went dark. The night Prince Kael was born, the sky did not simply cloud. It vanished. At precisely midnight, the moon disappeared behind a sudden celestial shadow. The court astrologers panicked. Priests began chanting. The palace midwives whispered prayers into trembling hands. Inside the birthing chamber, Queen Elowyn screamed until her voice broke. And when the second son finally emerged, silent, eyes open, watching, the eclipse reached totality. The high astrologer, Master Sereth, dropped to his knees. He stared at the newborn prince as if gazing upon something sacred and catastrophic at once. Then he spoke the words that would rot through the royal bloodline for decades. The second son will eclipse the sun. He tried to retract it. He begged forgiveness. But prophecy, once spoken under a darkened sky, could not be swallowed back. By dawn, Sereth had slit his throat across the marble observatory floor, and Prince Kael became something other than a child. Chapter 1. A Prince Raised in Shadow. Kael did not grow up unloved. He grew up untouched. A difference. His mother adored him quietly, but she died before he reached 8 winters. After her funeral, the king never held him again. Never struck him either. Kael was not abused. He was evaluated. Tutors reported on his temperament. Knights reported on his combat reflexes. Advisors reported on his conversational tone. Even his smiles were recorded. His older brother, Crown Prince Alaric, received gifts for his name days. Kael received books, histories of succession wars, treatises on betrayal, anatomy of poison. At 13, Kael correctly identified 3 assassination methods during a mock strategy exercise. The king's eyes had lingered on him too long that day. Not pride, calculation. Kael understood then. He was not being raised to rule. He was being raised to be controlled. So he built walls, not emotional ones, structural ones. Learned which ministers could be bribed, which generals carried private debts, which servants repeated rumors. He never confronted. He accumulated. By 25, there was not a single corridor in the palace where Kael did not know who breathed behind the walls. And yet, he had never known what it felt like to be chosen without reason. Chapter 2. The Silver Prince Arrives. Valoria's arrival changed the air. Their banners were not embroidered in gold, but in deep midnight blue, stitched with silver thread that shimmered unnaturally. Magic hummed from their ships before they docked. When Prince Lysander disembarked, the guards instinctively tightened formation, not because he moved threateningly, but because he moved like someone accustomed to being untouchable. Tall, composed, hands bound in ceremonial silver cuffs. The chains were enchanted to suppress mind magic. They did not seem to trouble him. His eyes were pale silver, not cloudy, not luminous, simply too clear. When he entered the throne hall, the entire court shifted. Some looked away quickly, some stared too long. Kael did neither. He studied him. Lysander's gaze found him almost immediately. Not the king, not the crown prince. Kael. Recognition flickered there. A mirror meeting another mirror. The king spoke first. Valoria offers peace in exchange for continued trade rights. Lysander bowed shallowly. Peace, he repeated, voice smooth and unhurried. And trust. Alaric smiled brightly. We are honored by such goodwill. Kael noticed Lysander did not look at Alaric when he said, trust is rarely mutual. A subtle blade, hidden in courtesy. Kael stepped forward. The West Tower will house our guest. Alaric stiffened. The West Tower is isolated. Exactly. The king hesitated, then nodded. Decision made. Lysander smiled faintly. and something invisible locked into place. Chapter 3. The West Tower. The West Tower overlooked the sea cliffs where waves struck stone with relentless violence. It was beautiful, lonely, guarded by 12 elite soldiers rotating every 6 hours. Cale dismissed the suggestion of locks. Physical restraint implies distrust, he said coolly. The truth was simpler. Locks insulted a mind mage, and Cale had no intention of insulting someone he intended to understand. The first night he visited, Lysander was standing by the window, unchained. The silver cuffs rested on a nearby table. You removed them, Cale observed. They were unnecessary. You could flee. Yes. A pause. I chose not to. Cale stepped inside fully, closed the door himself. Guards remained outside. Lysander turned slowly. You are not afraid of me. I am not naive. Silver eyes studied him carefully. You shield your mind. Years of practice. Against magic? Against everyone. Something shifted then. Not attraction. Not yet. Recognition of equal isolation. Chapter 4. The Brother of Sunlight. Crown Prince Alaric was adored. Children ran to him during public appearances. Merchants praised him openly. Nobles competed for his approval. He smiled easily, touched hands gently, but Cale had always known something others did not. Alaric needed to be seen. Cale needed to see. At a banquet celebrating Valoria's alliance, Lysander stood near Cale. Music played. Wine flowed. Alaric laughed loudly across the hall. He shines, Lysander murmured quietly. Yes, but light that bright burns quickly. Cale's eyes flickered briefly. You sound like a prophet. I dislike prophecy, Lysander said. It assumes inevitability. And what do you believe in? Choice. The word lingered. Choice. Not destiny. Not fate. Cale felt something tighten subtly in his chest. He did not examine it. Chapter 5. The Poisoning. Alaric collapsed 3 nights later. Foam at his lips. Hands trembling. Chaos erupted instantly. Accusations flew toward Valoria, toward Lysander, toward unnamed conspirators. Cale did not react outwardly. He knelt beside his brother calmly, examined his pulse, his pupils, then stood. He will live, Cale said. The court quieted. How do you know? The king demanded. Because this poison is diluted. Gasps. Cale's gaze lifted slowly across the hall. It was meant to frighten, not kill. His eyes paused on 3 ministers. One swallowed too quickly. Lysander watched Cale instead, fascinated. You knew this would happen, Lysander said quietly later that night. I knew someone would move. You allowed it. I needed confirmation. Lysander stepped closer. You gamble with lives. I calculate. Silver eyes darkened. You are colder than I expected. Cale met his gaze evenly. And you are more curious than a hostage should be. Neither looked away. Chapter 6. The First Touch. Rain hammered against the tower windows. The sea roared below. Cale arrived without guards that night. A deliberate vulnerability. Lysander noticed immediately. You dismissed them. Yes. Why? Cale stepped closer. If you intended harm, you would not have waited this long. Period. Silence. Then Lysander moved slowly, close enough to feel warmth. May I? He asked softly. A question no one had ever asked Cale. May I? Not command, not expectation. Cale did not nod. He did not refuse. Lysander lifted his hand carefully. Silver magic shimmered faintly around his fingertips. He touched Cale's temple. Not forceful, not invasive, and felt loneliness. Not weakness, but an ache carved so deeply it had become architecture. Lysander's breath caught. He pulled back sharply. "You carry too much alone," he whispered. "It is efficient. It is cruel." "To whom?" "To yourself." Cale had no answer. For the first time in years, he felt seen. Not analyzed, seen. And it unsettled him more than any blade. H2. Strong Chapter 7. Root. It began subtly. Lysander noticed who stood too close to Cale during council meetings, who lingered after dismissals, who whispered behind pillars. One by one, those individuals found themselves exposed. Scandals revealed, corruption uncovered, plots dissolved. Cale noticed the pattern. "You are intervening," he said quietly one evening. "Yes," Lysander replied. "Why?" Lysander stepped closer. "Because they look at you like an opportunity. And you are not an opportunity." The possessiveness in his voice was unmistakable. "You are mine to choose," Lysander added softly. The air tightened. Cale should have corrected him, should have asserted independence. Instead, he asked, "And if I refuse to be chosen?" Silver eyes sharpened. "I do not force what I value. A beat. But I do not share it." The darkness in that statement was not accidental. Cruel. It was protective. Dangerously so. And Cale felt something unfamiliar stir beneath his control. Not fear, not surrender. Want. H2, Chapter 8, The King's Final Move. King Theodric summoned Cale alone. "The prophecy breathes again," the king said quietly. "You fear it. I fear instability." Cale bowed. The king's gaze hardened. "Lysander will be executed publicly." Cale did not react. "You believe that will stabilize the court?" "I believe removing variables ensures control." Cale's jaw tightened slightly. "And if I refuse?" The king's voice softened. "You are my son." Not warmth, warning. Cale bowed. "I understand." But when he left that chamber, his path was already chosen. The execution platform rose in the courtyard, beneath a gray sky. Lysander stood bound, calm, watching only Cale. The king raised his hand. Cale stepped forward. "Before you proceed," he said clearly, "I present evidence of treason." Documents were revealed. Proof of Alaric's staged poisoning. Proof of manipulated public sympathy. Proof of the king's deliberate fostering of the prophecy to justify control. Gasps rippled. Alaric's composure shattered. The king's face drained of color. Guards hesitated. Lysander broke his chains. Silver light exploded outward, pressing against every mind in the courtyard. Not dominating, warning. "I do not wish to conquer this kingdom," Lysander said calmly. His gaze locked onto Cale. "But I will destroy anyone who threatens him." The possessiveness was no longer hidden. It was declared. Cale drew his sword. Not at Lysander, at the throne steps. "Then stand with me," Cale said quietly, and the eclipse began. Final chapter, The Crown and the Chosen. Cale was crowned under a winter sky, black and silver robes, no excessive celebration. Lysander stood at his right, not hostage, not subordinate, equal. That night, in private chambers, the crown rested on a table between them. "You rule now," Lysander murmured. "Yes." "And what do you choose?" Cale stepped closer, slowly, deliberately. "I choose the one who chose me without prophecy." Lysander's control fractured for the first time. His hand rose to cradle the back of Cale's neck. Foreheads touched. Breath mingled. "You are the only thing I cannot control," Lysander whispered. 2. Cale's voice lowered. "Stay." always. Not dramatic, not shouted, just absolute. Outside, the kingdom adjusted to new rule. Inside, two forces aligned, not because fate demanded it, but because they chose it. The sun had not been destroyed. It had been eclipsed, and in the darkness, a star burned brighter than any prophecy had foreseen.